Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Hopefully, this is going to work today. I'm sorry yesterday's didn't. Hopefully, we'll be able to get that fixed. But we'll see. So, today we are talking about the last section of our study on earthquakes. I need to make this so you guys can actually see the captioning. Maybe that'll work. We'll see. So this is 7.4. We're talking about staying safe in an earthquake. It's not a very long presentation, so hang in with me. By the time we're done, you should be able to create an action plan detailing what to do in an emergency if an earthquake occurred near the school or home. You should be able to detail what should be kept in an earthquake preparation kit and how to prepare homes for earthquake safety. What actions should be taken during and after an earthquake to ensure personal safety. To do that, today we're going to talk about different types of earthquake damage, the features that make a structure earthquake safe, and how to protect a person or household in earthquake country. So everybody thinks that people die in earthquakes and it's all because of the earthquake that people die. And there's this huge, big, bad thing about earthquakes and people dying. Well, the thing is, people do die in an earthquake. There is a lot of property damage done because of earthquakes, but it isn't the earthquake itself that kills people. It isn't the ground shaking that kills people. The ground doesn't open up and just swallow people whole. What happens is there may be a place open in the ground and maybe a car falls into it, or a car falls down, slides down into it. Maybe there is a lot of liquefaction going on and a house slides down a slope. More importantly, structures fall. You have these big, huge buildings, especially in some place like San Francisco or New York or big, huge cities. And these structures, these buildings, they fall. And when they fall, that's when people get hurt. It's not the shaking that hurts people. It's the building falling on top of them. Also, there are a lot of fires because lines rupture and things like that, and people get killed in those fires. The size of the earthquake doesn't necessarily make it more deadly. If you have a really, really bad earthquake out in the middle of the desert where nobody lives, not going to do a lot of damage, not going to kill a lot of people. Population density and what the ground is made of is what makes the earthquake dangerous. The more people in an area, or the population density, that's what population density is, how many people are in an area, then the more injury and deaths are going to happen, because you're going to have more buildings close together. You're going to have utilities right on top of each other. And so more people are going to be injured and die in a highly populated area. Most of you probably have never really thought about this, but solid rock, bedrock, doesn't vibrate as much as sediments do. So if buildings are on this solid rock, then they usually have less damage. However, in a lot of places, buildings are built on sedimentary rock or sediments. That means that it can absorb a lot of water. And if it does absorb a lot of water, then it can become like quicksand. And the process of this turning from saturated, or turning from rock into basically a liquid muddy goo, is called liquefaction. This can cause landslides if you're built on a hill and you have liquefaction of the hill underneath you. That can cause landslides. It can also cause buildings to sink down into the earth. And again, that's where people get hurt. So in places where there are likely to be earthquakes, this is the San Francisco Bay Area. They city planners try to reduce the damage by building only certain kind of buildings in certain places. So this map shows how strong the shaking is in different areas, so you can decide what you want to build where, or if you want to build there. If you look at this black area is very violent. So this area, any place you see this black, you don't want to build like a utilities department there, or hospitals there, or schools there. You want to have those in the much lighter colored areas. The blue, by the way, is ocean, so you can't ocean or lake bays. You don't want to build in the ocean either, although it kind of would be neat. You can't really do that. So you're going to want to build in this light green or to the light blue areas. You want to kind of try to stay away from these areas. Construction is a huge part of earthquake safety. So how a building is built, what it's built on, that kind of thing. So I just here's some things that California uses or other earthquake areas to help them reduce damage and deaths from earthquakes. The first one is a big building like this or bigger has to be anchored to bedrock. That means it has to go down into the ground and it has to be anchored to the rock underneath it, no matter how far down you have to go to hit that bedrock. If you can't find good bedrock, then you can't build on it. You also need to use the correct building materials, wood and steel. Plaster, adobe does not move well. Wood has a little bit of give to it. Steel even has a little bit of give to it. We don't think so because we can't bend it, but it does. Larger buildings have to be able to sway a little bit, but not so much that they run into the buildings beside them. So they use counterweights and diagonal steel beams that help that help allow it to sway a little bit, but not so much that it's going to run into the other buildings. They can also build these buildings, the newer ones, they can build them on rollers, which I think is like way cool. So they actually move with the ground. You know, when the ground moves this way, it's just the rollers that are going to move. The building is going to kind of stay there. They also can put it on layers of steel and rubber, so that helps to absorb the waves. They're not moving as much. The steel and the rubber would expand and contract and not make the building move so much. The other thing is the first story, like right here, has to be really, really, really well supported. Now you notice, yes, there's a lot of damage to this first floor, but if you look up here, not as much damage as there is on that first floor because the first floor was very well supported. So yeah, it had damage, but not nearly as much as it could have if the whole building had fallen down because of the shaking. Older buildings, they're going back and they're starting to add steel or wooden structures to them to help support them, especially on things like elevated highways like these or old buildings like this. They're going in and putting metalwork around it. It's not very pretty, but it will help the building stay up if there is an earthquake. And yeah, and bridges. They're using some metal stuff. This is like really good kind of camouflage of the steel structures and the wooden structures that they're putting in to help support this particular bridge. Now, here's the thing, like we said earlier, fires after the earthquake can actually cause more damage than the earthquake itself. Yes, there's big, huge holes here in this street, but the dangerous part is this fire. Well, why are there fires? Well, because when the earth shakes and the ground breaks, it also breaks gas lines, electrical lines, and water lines. It breaks the gas lines, and then it pulls those electrical wires, and the electricity ignites the gas. Not a big deal, just put it out, right? Yeah, well, there's a problem because it also broke the water line, so now you can't get water to the area. So now builders are starting to use piping that bends and flexes instead of it being so rigid. It bends and flexes. They're also putting in more valves so they can separate places where there are breaks. They can turn the water off so the water can get to where it needs to get to. And they can turn off the gas. They could turn the gas off here, and then we wouldn't have this big fire. They could also turn off the electricity to the different places. So why don't all places that are in earthquake zones do all of these things? Well, it's expensive. It costs a lot of money to do a lot of that. And a lot of places simply do not have the money to put into these kind of things. So they have to make choices on what they're going to do. And sometimes those choices are some of the wisest they could make, and sometimes they are not. So how do I protect myself if I'm in an earthquake or if I'm in an earthquake zone? Fortunately, we here in Indiana, where we're at in Indiana, we're not really in an earthquake zone. Yeah, we can feel that earthquake that happens down in the southern part, but it's not going to be bad enough usually that it's not going to be bad enough that it's going to do a lot of damage for where we are. But if you ever move into an earthquake zone, there's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things I didn't list here because you're teenagers and you probably aren't responsible for your own home yet. So things like making sure that you have that your home is made of wood or steel instead of adobe or brick. You don't have any say in that. But these are some things that you could do. You could make sure that heavy stuff is on lower shelves. Don't put your really heavy stuff up on the top. Replace or encourage your parents to replace halogen and incandescent light bulbs with fluorescent bulbs. That is actually a fire safety thing. The halogen and the incandescent can break and send sparks out, and fluorescent bulbs don't do that. Make sure that the stove, furnace, and water heaters are secured to walls and floors. Again, probably not something you can do, but you can look at it and see if it is and encourage your parents to make sure that it is. You can figure out how to shut off the gas and electricity in your house. You can also, make sure that there are flashlights in your home, easily accessible, and that there's one in the car and it's in an easy to reach place. I had a friend who had one of those seatbelt cutters, so that if she was ever in an accident, she could get out of her seatbelt. If the seatbelt locked up, she could get out of her seatbelt. Except that where did she keep it? In the back of her car. How is that going to help her get out of her seatbelt? She's not going to be able to reach it. So keep it easily accessible. Keep flashlights easily accessible. Have an earthquake kit. That was one of the standards, remember, is you needed to know how to do what an earthquake kit needed to have. Should have at least 3 days supply of water and food. And no, it's not going to be really delicious food, by the way. It's just going to be like granola bars and stuff that's not going to go bad. But a 3-day supply of water, a 3-day supply of food. You should have a radio. You should have a flashlight, and you should have extra batteries for that radio and flashlight. There should be at least one fire extinguisher in your home. You should have a first aid kit, and you should know how to use it. You should know basic first aid. And if you can get into a CPR class, you probably ought to do that too. Have a plan on how to evacuate. And in that plan, know where to meet your family in case you get separated. What if you're at Johnny's house over here and your family's at home and there's an earthquake? How are you going to know where to find them? Have that already set out so you're not worried about it and you're not trying to call them and things like that. During an earthquake, if we have an earthquake here in Indiana, or anywhere else, I know it sounds weird, but it truly is. This is what you got to do. Get underneath a sturdy table. Get underneath something that is sturdy, something that is strong. Cover your head and hold on. That's basically what you can do during an earthquake if you're inside. Make sure you're away from windows and mirrors and really large, tall furniture. That windows can break and do break, and you don't want to get cut by a bunch of glass. Mirrors can and do break, and you don't want to get cut by a bunch of glass. Large, tall furniture, bookcases, things like that fall over, and they can be very, very heavy, and so they can hurt you in that way. So find a sturdy table, get underneath it, cover your head, hold on, stay away from things that might break or fall. If you're outside, get to an open area that's away from buildings, or away from many buildings as you can get, and away from power lines, because power lines can kill you just like buildings can. If you're in your car, stay in your car. They can actually be a protection to you. But try to get away from anything that might collapse on top of the car, like buildings and power lines. Always try to stay away from power lines as much as you possibly can, just because they are very, very dangerous. After an earthquake, be ready for aftershocks. Remember, we talked a little bit about aftershocks are earthquakes that happen after the earthquake. It's kind of a rebound effect. If you can, if you're inside, turn off water and power to your house. If you know how to do that, do it. If you know where the water valves are in your house, especially the main one that goes in, turn that off. Pull the circuits from your electrical downstairs in your electric box. This is the worst part, and people are really bad at this. Use your phone only for emergencies. Well, but it is an emergency. I need to get a hold of my family. You need to assure your family that you are okay, and then you need to get off the phone. Because if in times of an emergency, too many people on the phone at the same time, people can't get through to emergency services. The phone lines are all busy and they can't call emergency services. They can't call and let their parents know that they're okay. If you have to be on the phone, be on as short a period as you can so that others can also have that opportunity. Wait for instructions. Follow your family plan. So if you're someplace safe, stay where you are. If you're not someplace safe, get someplace safe and then stay there. Don't be running everywhere. Follow your family plan. If your family plan says we're going to meet at the library, then get to the library as quickly as you can. Be prepared to help others as much as you can and as much as you're willing to do. Hopefully you'll be a good person and you'll be able to help people. That's all we have for today. Tomorrow, you're going to be doing the study guide that goes along with this. Friday is going to be a makeup day. So anything you didn't get done this week, Friday is your last day to do anything from chapter 8. Chapter 8 will be closed and locked at 11:59 on Friday. And then you will have all of next week. We will review for the test on Monday. The test will be on Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday will be makeup days for you to get anything done over chapter 7. Hopefully, you're not going to be too far behind. Hopefully, if you have not done your lab over volcanoes, get it done. Labs are 33% of your grade. That is the only lab we have. If you have a 0 on that, the best grade you're going to get is a D. And that's if you have everything else done. So please, 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 please get your lab done. Be prepared that has to be done by Friday. Be prepared for your test on Tuesday and have a great weekend.